Is one of my posts is at 2 million views right now. Every 30 seconds.
The following is brought to you in part by MFC Studios. The views of the show's host and guests do not necessarily reflect those of the management, owners, or staff of this radio station. And now, it came from the radio.
And welcome once again to It Came From the Radio, the official of the Big Apple Con. This is your host, Mark Torres, speaking. We are here for our 84th live audience show in front of a live studio audience. Yeah. They're semi-alive at the East Meadow Public Library. I'm here for our senior correspondent, Charlie Saladino.
Hello, fun seekers.
I'm here with L-Man Jenny Felty.
Hello.
And we're here with our special guest we're going to be talking to, with, and about, which is awesome because he's right here, makes our life easier. Film historian Keith Crocker. But before we do any of that, we have to take it away, the news. The news is brought to you in part by the fine folks of sci-fi.radio. That's sci-fi.
Oh, your Wi-Fi.
As well as the fine folks of the Big Apple Con, which we are the official radio show of, celebrating over 8 years of comic book ness and pop culture stuff. For more information, go to www.bigapplecc.com. The next convention is scheduled for November the 23rd, and tickets are on sale right now. So you can buy tickets right now, and then you gotta wait 2 months to go see the convention. Also want to have our shout-outs for our Patreons, of which there are Danny Grillo, award-winning director Jared Burrell, Kyle Horn, Millie Portez, Newsday famous Reza Media,
Munjikan!
Shadow Rabbit Art, Yasmin Array, Rosa, and the Huracan. The Huracan is also a convention that's going to be in East Rockaway on the same day, which is November the 23rd. If you want to have your own little shout out, go to our website, www.itcamefromradio.com. There's a little button on there that takes you right to our Patreon page. Also, on the It Came From Radio website is my comic book, Designated, a book about 2 warring alien races fighting over a newly discovered power source. The war finds its way to planet Earth, and as a result, some humans gain abilities. Issue 1 is on sale right now, and issue 2 is in pre-sale. As we always do, we start off with the sad news.
Great.
So let's see.
Very sad news.
Actor Peter Rennerday died recently. As of this recording, which is September 11th, no cause of death has been announced. While Peter was in a slew of shows and movies, a vast majority of his career was spent as a voice actor. He was perhaps his most famous roles would be that of Grapple on the original Transformers animated series, which I used to love, Mandrake the Magician in the Defenders of the Earth cartoon, where they had all the 4 characters, Mandrake, Flash Gordon, the Phantom, and, oh crap, I forgot the 4th guy. And there's a 4th guy, and he played Mandrake the Magician. And then he was also the original Splinter on Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the original cartoon, the animated series. So obviously, if you were a fan of TMNT, you know his voice as Splinter. Did you used to watch Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Charlie, as a...
Of course not.
Jen?
I actually did.
You used to watch the Turtles?
Yeah,
So
I did.
Master
I
Splinter,
liked
you know
him.
Master Splinter.
Sure.
Yeah, okay.
I thought he was scary.
You thought Splinter was scary?
Was it? Yeah, a little bit.
The rat? The
Yeah, I thought it was a little scary.
Alright, fair enough.
Yeah.
Keith, were you a fan of the Turtles?
Absolutely not. No, but allow me to just explain that. That's kind of past. It's I should say I'm past it. In other words, I really wasn't the right age for what Ninja Mutant Turtles were. I knew of them. It wasn't lost to me. It just wasn't anything that particularly caught my attention at the time.
Yeah.
So, fair answer.
It probably would have been like me being into Barney now.
Yes.
Like, why?
Right.
Sort of.
Right. I'm in agreement with you. Absolutely right. It's about timing. Everything's about timing.
So, of note, he also was the voice of Abraham Lincoln in the Disney Hall of Presidents. So if you ever went on the Disney Hall of Presidents, you go there, let's say Abraham Lincoln, that's his voice. That's Master Splinter. So a really cool thing. He was 89 years old. So moving on for a second bit of sad news. Comic book creator John Cassidy also died recently. Also no cause of death has been announced. While he worked on a slew of titles, he is perhaps best known for his work on Ghost and Hellboy for the Dark Horse Comics. I used to love Ghost. Just Imagine Stan Lee with John Cassidy creating Crisis, Planetary, Desperados, A Moment in Sunlight for DC Comics, and his X-Men work for Marvel. He was a very stylized artist, and I've never had the chance to meet him. So, and all the stories I've heard, he was a very nice guy to talk to. He had tons of stories working in the business for all this time, and he was only 52 years old. And then we move on for the last final bit of sad news.
Great.
Actor James Earl Jones died recently. Also, no cause of death has been announced. I don't have to say anything about him because he was an amazing man. He's done so many roles, and I don't have to mention that his iconic voice of Darth Vader or Mufasa in the Lion King films. What I can mention is that during the most recent Obi-Wan series, James made an agreement to have his voice used in perpetuity to Disney, or more specifically Lucasfilms, as Darth Vader. This will be achieved using AI. And we've been talking about this for a long time, about how people are using AI in the wrong way, and that that's why there's a voice actor strike going on right now. But
Again?
Again, you missed out.
I did not know. Okay.
But what's interesting is that he made the deal, and so they will have Darth Vader forever and ever and ever for using his voice for AI. So that was an interesting fact, little tidbit about him. Did you ever get a chance to meet James Earl Jones?
Sorry to say no, but he was one of the best actors of our time. And for all his beautiful acting, I mean, he was on Broadway. My favorite role he was in Field of Dreams. I loved him in Field of Dreams. And I love him in a lot of things, but in Field of Dreams, it was my favorite role. I'm very sad about this.
Are you a fan of James's work, Jen?
Well, I'm sorry. I'm going to switch topics on you. I'm interested that his voice is going to carry on. So who's going to make the money?
So his
it gonna go to
estate,
his family?
his estate got paid a certain amount of money to use his voice in perpetuity. So here's a big bag of money to his estate, or him and now his estate.
Yeah.
Big bag of money, so forever and ever we'll have as much Darth Vader as they want to use using AI.
Jen, we're going to do the same thing with Charlie when Charlie's gone. We're going to AI his voice. And he'll be here on the show, and he'll be a voice in my films.
I'm not going to AI, but I'm going to say, take it ace. That's going to be mine.
Oh my God. Hopefully not for a really, really, really long time.
Now, Charlie's with us for a long time, and he will continue to be with us for a nice long time.
That's the
We
plan.
have to continue to give Mark a run for his money and throw him off his game.
Yes. So are you a fan of James's work, Keith?
Oh, am I a fan of his work? He goes back quite a bit. His voice was always incredibly distinctive. So it's interesting that probably in certain ways his most lucrative role may have been Darth Vader, his voice. You understand, versus the physicality. So I always found him fascinating. The Great White Hope is one particular film that I have in mind when I think of his work. Also Conan the Barbarian.
Yes.
He was fantastic. He was rotten in Conan the Barbarian. He made for a really good villain.
He was the only actor in Conan.
Yeah, you know, that's a good point. You actually made a really good point there. He is the most distinct and distinguished of the cast. You're correct. You're correct about that. But yeah, I'm quite fond of his work.
He was very good.
Yeah.
I really think it's cool that in addition to being Darth Vader, that's an iconic voice, but he managed to move that further into the rest of his career. He wasn't just that, and he was a really good actor on top of that. So I think it was a good thing, because some people get typecast, and I think he's like one of the most famous voices at the time.
Yes.
And probably beforehand, there really wasn't that big of a voice person, right?
No, you're actually right about that. I think his voice was used, and I think he also did commercial work. But that said, the Darth Vader is the biggest piece of voice work that he ever did, and it's amazing that it's what he really it's set a platform for him. But I'm also going to say to this. We knew him because of his work on TV. There was a made-for-TV movie about the abduction of Betty and Barney Hill by a UFO. Supposedly this couple under hypnosis actually described being abducted by aliens and were taken on a UFO and examined and then dropped back off. It was an interracial couple. He played the husband. It was James Earl Jones. And he was really remarkable. He did a really good job in this made-for-TV movie, which, might be out now, but made-for-TV movies from the 70s, they're slow in coming out. So he's remarkable in that. That made an impression on me as a kid when I saw it, because I think we're talking around 1975 when it was made.
And just as a side note, I live in St. James. There is a little, it's the oldest general store ever. It's called a general store. It was a general store from 1857, always a general store. It's still a general store. So it's sort of a historical site. AT&T did a commercial there, and it's like an old porch, and there was an old rocking chair, and James Earl Jones did the commercial, and he's in that rocking chair.
Wow.
And it's still there at the gym. So whenever I go, I tell people the story, and everybody, I have a picture of everybody in that rocking chair.
Charlie, I've passed the place many times because Keith Maturo lives over there, so as you know, we passed that. And
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's amazing.
So James was 93 years old. That's it for the sad news. So we
Yes,
have,
good.
going back to our non-sad news.
Alright.
From the That's a Lot of Nuts department.
That's a lot of nuts.
The new Beetlejuice sequel has taken to the #1 spot in the domestic box office, pulling in $111 million in ticket sales in its first week release, beating out the new Deadpool sequel, which came in the #2 spot, making an additional $7 million in its 7th week of release. For those of you keeping track, Inside Out 2 is still the highest grossing film of this year so far, with $651.9 million, followed by Deadpool with $613.8 million. Beetlejuice comes in at number 14. Did you see Beetlejuice?
No, but I'm wondering if it was good. Did you hear the reviews?
So I actually saw Beetlejuice.
Oh my
Let's
God!
hear it.
Well, then tell us.
So what I felt that they tried to do was try to follow the formula that Beverly Hills Cop, the new Beverly Hills Cop did on Netflix, the Top Gun, that they tried to pay homage to the original, make it a true sequel, bring back as much of the original cast as they can, and then continue the story on as opposed to trying to reboot or change the formula. So they kept it into that. It was entertaining, it was funny, had a lot of throwbacks, but it felt like it was part of the story. One of the biggest issues is that one of the cast members, which is Jeffrey Jones, wasn't decided to be brought back to the production because he's a registered sex offender.
Oh.
So something happened that he got in trouble, and he got he had a registered as a sex offender. Like, we don't want him to be part of this movie, and so instead of just recasting him or just writing him off, they used him as an integral part of the story.
Oh.
But it was somebody else as him, but it wasn't spoilers.
Right.
He gets defaced, so that way they can put an actor in there that's not him, but it still be the character, and they made the whole movie around that.
Was Dick Cavett in it?
No, Dick Cavett was not in it.
So there's another one.
But what I found was a problem with the movie is that it had like 4 or 5 different subplots, and each subplot felt like it could have been its own movie.
Oh.
But it felt like too many things was happening, so it kind of diluted the enjoyment of the movie. And it might be because of how with today's day and age that the kids are very short attention span, and that's how they
that
see
makes
things.
sense.
So it might actually be one of the reasons why it was so popular,
Yeah.
because it was all over the place and it had a good cast.
Right.
But I enjoyed it for what it was. It was pretty darn enjoyable, and surprising that it made that much money for its first weekend out, because obviously there was a need for this movie that no one knew was going to come, because $111 million, I think it's like the 15th biggest opening this year. And no one expected it to do this gangbusters.
Really?
Yeah, no one expected Beetlejuice to do this well.
I expected
You,
it.
you did?
Yeah, I would expect it to be, but I hope it sets a precedent so that every time that we need to kill off a character, because usually, you know, in movies, if we don't like someone or they were a pedophile or something egregious that we can't forgive them for, we either kill them off or they go on vacation or they disappear. But if we could just remove their face, then we could just keep the storyline going. So I hope that that's what other filmmakers decide to do, just rip off people's faces and keep the character in the story, rather than shipping them off to another country.
They removed his face in the most Tim Burton-esque way that fits into the story. I can't say more than that
That's
without
so-
going
well, I
into
hope
it.
we
That's
see many
an
more.
artificial face.
Yes, artificial face. Oh, were you a fan of Beetlejuice?
The first one, yes. It's funny. I really don't have much of a desire to see the follow-up. I'm not really very much into things that necessarily continue or have sequels. A sequel has to really be earned. In my opinion, there should really be a story to be told, just my personal opinion. But the first Beetlejuice was very original and very amusing. And I remember getting a kick out of it. I don't think I saw it, which is unusual. I don't think I saw it in its initial run. I believe my wife turned me onto it at some point. She had showed it to me, and I said to myself, I even said to myself, I should have been more proactive with that film. I should have taken a look at it. For some reason, I turned away from it, and I don't know why I did, but when I finally saw it, I ended up enjoying it, immensely enjoying it.
But
I think
you thought it was about Beatles, and you're more of an ape guy.
I wish it was something that simple. I don't know what it was, because I actually don't mind most of Burton's work. So I actually should have given it a try. Maybe sometimes I feel like when he's too purposefully funny, he fails. But that film did not fail. That film worked really, really well. The situation perfectly blended with the comedy. So I am a Beetlejuice fan, but the likelihood that I would see the follow-up, or would go out of my way to see the follow-up, is not too likely, you know?
What's interesting to note is that Michael Keaton, people forget that he's a very versatile actor. And like, I remember distinctly when Batman was coming out, everyone was like, oh, Mr. Mom can't be Batman, and then he did an amazing job. And then he did all these, he does comedic roles, and then when he did Multiplicity, I forgot how funny he was. And I loved Multiplicity, especially when he was playing clones of himself, so he played off of himself, and I thought that was a great, amazing range of different comedy playing off himself that he wasn't even there at the time. It was by Ivan Reitman, I think he did that movie, Multiplicity.
I met him. I met
You know Michael Keaton?
Yeah, when he was doing Batman, he came to ABC, and we didn't know how big Batman was. I mean, just, I'm Batman. I mean, but what I talked to him about was like my favorite Michael Keaton movie was Johnny Dangerously. I don't know if anybody has seen that. I thought that was one of the most funniest, and I got a chance to talk with him about. Very nice guy. Very nice guy.
So moving on, from the, remember when Tyrese was upset at The Rock for making Hobbs and Shaw Department? None other than actor Tyrese Gibson has been arrested for not paying child support. According to court documents, in April of 2023, Tyrese was ordered to pay $10,690 a month in child support, but that had only been paying $2,200 instead. During a court hearing, Tyrese was then ordered to pay a total of $73,525.78 in 48 hours to avoid jail time, which included $7,500 in legal fees. Obviously, he did not do that and was arrested. Tyrese says via social media, Samantha, which is his ex-wife, lawyer Adam Gleckman, and William Alexander, who are besties with the judge, Kevin M. Farmer, in collusion. We are appealing all of his rulings and have already tried to get the judge thrown off the bench twice. The second time we tried to recuse him from the bench, he actually denied his own request to be thrown off the bench. Imagine that. It is pretty clear that they hate my guts, but I must remind them and that everything in my life here and my success. I worked my butt to show off since I was 14 old to get here. He added, hashtag family courts are the worst towards fathers. Gibson and Lee were married in 2017. She filed a complaint for divorce in 2020, and two later released a joint statement saying that they called the split a painful and significant development in their lives. Now, if you remember...
And you missed this. And we will not, I say this, will not pay that 78 cents.
Can you imagine? You know, the weirdest thing, as a side story, you owe money for child support, you don't pay the child support, you go to jail, you get out of jail, you still owe the child support. That's the one thing I was wondering about. Like, if you go to jail, you shouldn't have to pay the child, but you still do, so if you're in jail, how can you pay the child support if you're in jail? But if you guys remember, Tyrese was mad at The Rock because The Rock had made a Hobbs and Shaw spin-off movie as opposed to doing the new Fast and Furious movie because The Rock and Vin Diesel had a little friction. And Tyrese went on social media saying that he needed the money, that he had to pay child support, and that he was crying and upset that he's not going to have a job because they weren't making that movie, and he called out The Rock for that. And I guess this is why he was saying that, because he had to pay $10,000 a month in child support.
Wow.
Do you remember any of this, Charles?
No.
Yeah, no, I don't remember either.
You don't remember we've talked about it.
I don't
We've mentioned this many
I-
times on the show about this.
These people are not in my life. You think I hope this year, like whatever I hope the year carries on. I'm not thinking about The Rock before I go to bed. And Tyrese, you know, I like his posts. His lives are quite entertaining. He does some very interesting stories, ranting. But yeah, no, I have no idea. But
Were you familiar with
No,
it?
lost to this. I don't even know who you're talking about. And you know what? I don't want to know who you're talking about. I like the little world I'm in, and I can do without. I'm
He was
good.
in the
Thank you,
second
though.
one, second Fast and Furious, right?
Yeah.
Was he in the first one?
I don't think so. I've only
Right.
seen the 5th, 6th, 7, 8, 9.
I've
10.
seen them all, but I think he started in the second one.
Okay.
And then he went, except for Hobbs and Shaw.
Hobbs and Shaw, yeah. So moving on.
Thank God.
From the
I mean, I can continue.
actually, I'll mention this. We mentioned this earlier today. So as of today, which is 9/11, the active voice strike is still going on, and we're up to day 47. We
day
mentioned
one
this.
for me.
We mentioned about how there was the big strike last year about the writers and directors and the stars and all that stuff, and they just kind of forgot about the voice actors for video games and animated series and
Correct.
even movies. And now they're on strike,
Right.
and really no one's talking about it, which I find to be
No.
very sad,
Right.
because that's a
It's
huge
the
part
voices.
of the industry. The video game industry is $1 billion industry,
Yes.
and with more CGI characters, voice actors, and the AI performances are important to this type of thing. Think of the Planet of the Apes movies. All the apes were AI performances that they do the motion capture, and what the studios want is to use that and not pay them for coming in to do the work.
Yeah.
So it's day 47, no end is in sight. I don't know what's gonna happen. What do you think about this?
I think they're going to lose. I mean, the voice actors don't have much of a voice to begin with. Most people don't care, or they're not fans of voice actors, you know, supporting them and rioting or rebelling for them. AI is probably going to win because money talks, and if it's cheaper to pay AI to do the voice, why pay a human? And why deal with a human who's late? The last interview I had before this, I had to reschedule the guy 3 times. You think I want to deal with humans all the time? No, I'd rather just pay AI. Sort of joking around, sort of not.
What do you think about that, Keith? Voice actors.
You know,
as a film
voice
historian.
actors had more prominence or more importance. We go back to the early days we go back to the cartoons. When I was growing up, you know, they really lent a personality to a cartoon. I know that people now can pull in money. A lot of people who are acting will pull in money doing readings. Will read a book as a recording that people can listen to. So I do know that people can use it as an alternative source of making money. In terms of what Jen said, the truth of the matter is that the money end is always going to win out, whether you want to believe that or not. And that might be why you're not hearing more about this. But it's also their job, and I do mean the actors and the union, to be more vocal and to make sure their voice does get heard. You know, there are so many platforms to be heard on now, so it's really their job they have to push harder. And that's something they're gonna have to think about as this goes on, you know, to become more visually, become more of a visual reality to people, all right? So that's what they have to do, but the reality is, as Jen said, it's like trying to stop this technological progress, or progress as they call it. It's a tidal wave.
Yeah.
I don't have to like it.
Right.
Doesn't matter, it's coming.
Right.
So, what are you gonna do, you know?
Right.
So it's one of those things.
Well, what you're gonna do is you're gonna have a unique voice that people want to hear, and that AI can't do.
Right,
Like,
right.
if you have a unique voice, we're gonna get to that in a few minutes.
That goes back to, it's funny you bring that up. Well, thank you, by the way.
Yeah, you can't
I always
really
thought I
see it.
just sounded like Long Island.
Long
Long Island.
Your body at work.
It's Keith Crocker. We know, boy from Long Island. But that's it. I appreciate that though. But that said, but that's what I brought back to the cartoons. I was talking about people like Mel Blanc, you know, who voiced Bugs Bunny and did your Daffy Duck, and and a lot of the people who worked for Walt Disney or Walter Lantz, they would do the voices of these cartoon characters.
Or even current, Billy West.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just throw that in current.
Okay. Why not? Just toss it in. Who the hell is Billy West? You wanna
Billy
tell
West,
me?
does
Ren
the
and
voice of...
Stimpy, all the voices for all the modern cartoon characters.
Okay.
Like Ren and Stimpy. And
Gotcha. Ren and Stimpy. I got
You
you.
watch
Now I got you. I
He
got
does
you.
the voice of Fry.
Oh, okay. Okay.
But this voice actor strike, I'd like to say that I really don't care.
Really?
Does anyone care about this voice actor
I
strike?
think people should care
You
about
do.
the voice actors.
Are you in the business?
It's
No.
important.
All right. It's important that they don't use AI.
Right.
But that's gonna just keep going. I feel bad for them.
Yeah, yeah.
Because every time, they don't have a prayer, is what I'm saying.
Probably not.
So,
Charlie, you've seen the steamrollers go by, so you know how this thing works.
Yes,
That's
I
how
know,
these things
I
work.
know.
It's not like he's
Well,
saying
I
that.
just-
He's not saying that out of pleasure
Right.
or even remotely supporting it. He's just saying there is a reality
Yeah.
coming, and it's going to be
These
tough.
poor guys, it's gonna come, and that's
And,
it.
and Jen makes the point
And-
of your voice better really stand out.
Right.
And if it doesn't work on it, it's better if it comes natural, but what she's saying is you really want to stand out. So if you can stand out, stand out.
Yeah.
And that's, and she's saying it will up their game. Maybe for some it will up their game, make people
Yeah.
work harder. Yeah, you're probably right.
But a lot of people will not be able to do that.
No, yeah, you're right.
Kate,
Yeah.
do you remember, because we're the same era, do you remember, Colossus, the Forbin project?
Yes.
There you go. That's why I am so afraid of AI.
That movie was a warning. That was a warning.
1970 they did
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
All right.
Yeah. You bring up a really good, that's a good film that you mentioned, Charlie,
Well,
because that was a warning of
It was
an
what?
authentic.
all right,
What?
let's mention what the movie's
Yeah,
about.
well, I
What
was
the hell
just
you
gonna
talking
say it.
about?
You jumped in, you interrupted me. Colossus, the Forbin project was about a gentleman who created a computer who could think, feel, and everything, and he put one in the United States and one in Russia. The computers link up, and the computers were supposed to do things by themselves as they are, and they start taking over things, and the governments can't stop them, and they actually run the world at the
It's
end
a
of it.
really interesting science fiction. A lot of the science fictions at that point were anticipatory and they were bleak. So they were really good. That's one of them. Colossus, the Forbin
1970.
project, yep.
Just to have the insight, yeah,
Oh, yeah, incredible film.
I'm done.
So that's it for the news. So we're going to
Alright.
take a quick break in front of our live studio audience.
Yeah! Woo! All right.
It came from radio.
Hey everybody, this is Todd McFarlane of the record-setting Spawn comic series. And if you're looking for any kind of cool conversation about creators, about entertainment, about all that good stuff, you go to It Came From The Radio. You're listening to the right spot.
Cat like a gazelle, just.
This is Quentin Flynn, a popular voice actor known for Axel, Timon, and Raiden from the Metal Gear series. And you're listening to It Came From The Radio. Stick around.
Hey, I'm Mike Kingston, the writer and creator of Headlocked.
And I am WWE Hall of Famer Jerry the King Lawler. And guess what you're listening to? You're listening to It Came From The Radio.
Hi, this is Amy Jo Johnson, writer-director from the film The Space Between, and you're listening to It Came From The Radio.
Love Amy.
Meet Grimlock having fun on It Came From The Radio. Meet Greg Berger also.
Now, back to our show.
And welcome back to It Came From The Radio, the official Big Apple Con. This is your host, Mark Torres, speaking at the Eastmount Public Library for the 84th live show in front of my live studio audience.
Yeah! Woo!
I'm here with senior correspondent Charlie Saladino,
Hello.
Elman Jenny Feldy,
Welcome back.
and our special guest, we're going to be talking about film historian Keith Crocker.
Thank you for having me.
I want to mention that the East Meadow Public Library has tons and tons of programming, most of which are free. So you just go to www.eastmeadow.info, and one of the shows is our show that we do once a month. So Keith, as our guest, usually I know the guests ahead of time. I've met them beforehand, but I've never met you. But apparently, senior correspondent Charlie Saladino knows you very well, and so does Elman and Jenny Feldy.
Correct,
So
yes.
for me, why don't you introduce yourself and for the rest of the audience?
Absolutely. So again, I am Keith Crocker, and people in East Meadow might know me for running the Pop Culture Film Series here at East Meadow Library, which is a film screening series. And it's interesting because it developed into that actually right around the period of COVID. It had developed into that, and we started actually screening feature-length films. Prior to that, my presentations usually involved clips and talking, explaining things, various subject matters and whatnot. And I've been giving presentations to libraries and community centers and temples and churches for the past 29 years. I've been doing it for 29 years. And, prior to doing that, so most people would generally look at me as a film historian. I was at Nassau Community College Adult Education for 20 years. I'm with Hutton House at LIU now, and I've been with them, I think I'm going on to my 6th year now with them. Did Cumberland and Great Neck. So I've been around for a while doing these various places, film history and also teaching filmmaking, all right? So prior to that, and also during that, I continue in the world of filmmaking. That's what my background is in. But I was also a fanzine writer, and we've got Jen here holding up for our live audience, folks, a copy of a magazine that I used to do that we did 25 issues of, and it ran from 1987 to 2005, and it was called the Exploitation Journal. And we started that zine up when I was in college. I went to the New York Institute of Technology from 1984 to 1988. We started the zine there. We printed it on our own, but we used to give it out to the film students in an effort to turn them on to underground cult cinema. Because a lot of the film students in the college were kind of obsessed with the current state-of-the-art cinema. So they were all hung up over Spielberg and Lucas, and we wanted to take them to a different place, a different existing world of cinema. And what happened was, I'll tell you an interesting story. We became the unofficial magazine of the film department. We became the unofficial magazine of the film department. And Tech was so impressed with what we were doing that they actually offered to produce the zine. They said, I'll tell you what, we'll produce it, we'll make it up for you. And you just have to allow other students in to write for the magazine. We declined the offer. And the reason why we declined the offer is because they would have turned the magazine into exactly what we didn't want it turned into. All of a sudden, it would have been a magazine about the Spielberg and about Lucas and about what Coppola was currently doing or that type of thing. And we didn't want that. So we chose not to have them do it, and we continued to self-produce the magazine, and we did end up getting distribution. Okay, so we were very, very lucky, aside from the fact that we ended up in Tower Records and Videos, who were the best people to handle distribution with because you were directly dealing with them. And they paid half the cost of the magazine up front. You couldn't go wrong with that. It was one of the best deals you could ever have. So we got involved with Tower Records and Videos, but even prior to that, we were involved with a company called Desert Moon Periodicals. And Desert Moon Periodicals was started by this lovely guy named David Williams. And I believe he's still out there. He's not doing magazines anymore, of course. Most of these people that I might mention are still out there. But he got us distribution into Barnes & Noble, okay, Borders Books. We were really knocked off our socks by what this guy did for us. So he got the magazine into the major bookstores and the comic book stores. And we had a good run until that company, which again was called Desert Moon Periodicals, we had a good run until he sold the company, and it was bought up by this other guy named Dave Hershey. And Dave Hershey could not go out of his ways to find more ways to take your money. I'm not kidding about this. He kept trying to figure out every way to complicate the whole process of distribution to make sure that you were paying him. And so we pulled the magazine from Desert Moon, and Desert Moon did end up going under.
And Dave Hershey sounds like the Don King of
Oh,
magazines.
yeah,
Because
doesn't
Don
it?
King was known to charge Mike Tyson for towels, thousands of dollars. It's just
Right.
making all this stuff
Right,
up.
just making stuff up.
Well,
And
where is
people-
Dave Hershey now?
Yeah, that's where I want to know. Someone knew who Williams was, and Williams was still working in media in California. So Williams is doing all right. Hershey, we never heard from again. He just dissipated like he should have dissipated. So that's
I'd like to talk to Hershey.
Yeah, you and me both. I think we're gonna have to. Maybe we should put out. What is it when you
SOS smoke signal.
Yeah.
Oh no, what do we
Wait.
do now? A tweet, an X, what are we?
Something. We gotta find
A
out.
TikTok?
We gotta find out
Dance?
what the story is and make him answer for his crimes.
I
But you
wanna
know,
know.
we had a really good run with the magazine, and the only reason why I pulled the magazine, the only reason why I stopped is when Tower Records and Videos went out of business. So we're talking around 2005. That was it for me. Distribution, the people that were willing to distribute your magazine were no longer there. The venues were no longer there. So that's why I stopped that completely. I no longer did the written material. I had a website by that point, but at no point did I ever say that the website would take over for the journal. At no point was the website supposed to be the journal. It was something invented new, something invented fresh. So, I'm sorry, I go on for a while. You'll find I've warned already that I can talk. So I apologize, but yeah,
No, it's
It's
fine.
interesting.
Okay.
Makes my job
Yeah,
easier.
that's very
Sure.
interesting.
Okay.
Well, me and Keith go way back. I mean, I was very honored to be in one of his short films. I acted in one of his short films, and I saw his amazing approach to directing, and he's such a great director, and he takes whatever projects he's working on, and he just dives into it. I mean, and he knows that I am going to mention this. He is one of the most technically innovative directors. It's out of what is it?
Mother
Yeah.
of
Like how?
One of
necessity is the mother of invention.
Yeah.
Okay.
So one day we're working on a film and I'm watching him, and rather than set up the poles on the floor, rather than set up the guidelines, Keith invents what I thought was genius, the wheelchair dolly.
Oh, wheelchair.
The wheelchair dolly. He takes his camera, he becomes the director, the cameraman, and they put him on a wheelchair, and he films the whole sequence being rolled on that wheelchair instead of dollying. And it was genius. The scene came out great. So I call them the founder and the inventor of the wheelchair dolly.
Question: is someone rolling here?
Yeah.
So I just got to interject. So I was watching a lot of your films. I think it was the Marx Brothers. I forget. There's a bunch of shorts. They're very creative, and I see in the credits Jim Haggerty, who I shot with,
Right.
and Jim Haggerty made a dolly out of a grocery cart, which I told a lot of people. He put this old camera, I don't even know what type of camera is defunct, they do not make these for like 30 years, and he puts it on a grocery cart and then rolls it, and he wanted to be rickety chasing after me. So I guess between Jim and you just roll around all these different random things.
What always amazed me, I'll say this about Charlie, and he was so complimentary. So here's Charlie, and I knew him during the ABC years, and here's Charlie, who's used to money being spent, and then he comes to me, and we were poverty. We made films on nothing. And he was so blown out by that wheelchair. So now when Charlie's talking about this, he's talking about the 90s. And we had been using the wheelchair trick since the 80s. In fact, a lot of my film professors didn't like it. They were annoyed about me. They wanted you to follow what they laid down for you or the equipment they laid down for you. And they had wheels and that you could attach to the tripod and stuff. But some of these shots did not accommodate that. So the wheelchair worked better. So the wheelchair thing was going on for years. So here's Charlie connected with ABC. And then Charlie is saying to me, well, this is great. And I'm really complimented because I'm like, wow, he likes this.
It's genius. I've seen at the soap operas, you have to see all the guides they lay down to get from one thing to. They could have just put the cameraman in a wheelchair and send him right across. It's amazing. I went back there, I said, did you ever think of using a wheelchair? And they all laughed at me.
Sure they did. Sure they did, because they have to spend that money that's put up to them. That money has to be spent. So the fact of the matter is, we were trying to figure out how you do everything for nothing. And that was how we got involved in shooting that way, you know, using wide angle lenses. Because remember, when we go back to, we're talking about, my training was in film. The world has completely changed now. Everyone's doing, you know, 4K, 1080. They're shooting, you know, they're shooting HD, and it's now the industry standard. But I was trained on film, and what I said about film was it separated the men from the boys, the women from the girls, meaning that there was an investment in film. That was where your money had to go. Whether you liked it or not, you really couldn't develop the film yourself. So you always dealing with purchase and developing costs. Most people would screw up if they were not comfortable with the camera. They would screw up a day's shooting, and it would come back blurry or come back not at all. And this is what separated. It kept people, because of that factor, it kept people out of the industry. The only people who tried to stay in it were the people who grew comfortable with actually shooting film. So I was a film guy, and I continued to be a film guy as long as I could into the early 2000s. And then finally, A1 Reversal closed, and that was a reversal. They developed reversal film, okay? It didn't have a negative. It was a reversal film that you could shoot. And when they closed, I sort of said to myself, I said, it's really ending now. The whole film element thing is ending now. So I kind of had to back out of that and get more comfortable with digital video, and then from digital video to HD. So, yeah.
So what's it like making movies no budget or low budget? You know, a lot of people think you need 100,000. There's one movie written, just a quick anecdote. No, we need 100,000 to do this. I said, hold on, I know special effects. Maybe I can wipe out your $20,000 fee. As an actor, I'm not greedy. I can wipe out this fee. Maybe we can bring it down to 70 or 80. But do you need 100,000 to make a movie? How can you do it on no budget? How did you do it on no budget?
We did it on a no budget because what we did is we brought in people who had passion. And by the way, this is the same problem I'm having now. Is I notice as I'm getting ready to. I'm going to get I have 2 projects slated to get off the ground, and I noticed that I've been moving unusually slow in letting this or making this happen. Part of it's because I'm not happy with the changes that I've seen on the horizon about actors and actresses and some of the people that have come in. The soul seems to be gone. There's so much, there's so many people out there doing things, so many projects out there being done, that it no longer means anything special to an actor or an actress. Oh, if I'm not in that, I'll be in someone else's. So therefore, they're not coming in with passion. They're coming in with, what can you do for me? What are you going to give me? And I won't say what I want to say, what I'm going to give them, but because we can't say it. But it turns me off so much that I just make a note that I do not want to deal with this person. And the problem is I'm having trouble finding people I do want to deal with. So this has been like kind of an interesting change in time. It's not the same people I dealt with for the 2 features I did. I had 2 different types of people. One in the very first film that we did, the first feature. I say feature, which we shot on film. We shot on sound, Super 8mm film. And the people who were in that just loved doing it. They were there for the love of it. They were friends.
For the love of the game.
And they just wanted to be there. And they would go out of their way to make the experience special. So they were just lovely people. They had no expectations.
They were fabulous actors.
And they really were, because they were down-to-earth people. They weren't looking to be actors and actresses. Most of them already had a career or a job that they were happy with. And they weren't looking to change their career. So you actually got these really spirited performances out of them, not because because of what it would have done for them necessarily, but because they were enjoying themselves.
They were having a blast.
They were having a blast. So when I flash back to that first film, there was no topping that experience. Everybody went out of their way to make it the most pleasant experience you could. Now the second feature was, again, a little bit different. I went out of my comfort zone and I did not pick from the people that I knew. I went out of my comfort zone, and I think it was New York Castings at the time, and I think New York Castings is still around, and I think my memory was at the time, was that you didn't pay them, they would run the ad for you, and the actors and actresses paid to see the ads, to see what was available. So I still got good people, because these were people who were willing to pay to see what was out there and wanted to work on something, and just wanted to work on it. They wanted it for the credit, because a lot of them had no credit. And they came in and they were remarkable. So I ended up finding some incredibly, incredibly talented people who I very much enjoyed. Some of them went into, started doing plays off Broadway and stuff like that. So they kind of went into the acting, but more in the play end of it than say the film end, you know? You know, what I'm just saying is it's a different atmosphere out there now. But everyone is walking around like they're entitled, and this is what I'm running into. So this is a problem that I'm running into when I'm trying to cast people, and I get people coming in. Some of them look like they come and they don't want to be there. Well, if you don't want to be there, what the hell are you doing here? like you're not doing me a favor.
Right.
You're making the situation worse by showing up.
Right.
So, you know, I find it now to be more difficult, more to my dislike, and that's probably because, and Charlie will probably back this up, is that I got very used to doing things my way and the way I want to do them. So a lot of that hasn't changed. I still find a lot of my old methods are the best ways for me to work. Doesn't necessarily jive with what people have in mind today, so there's some degree of conflict. The reality is, of course I'm gonna work that out. I'm gonna find the right people. It's tenacity. It's tenacity. I think the problem is, in my younger years doing the two features, you're younger, realistically I'm 59 now, right? So you're younger and you have a lot of energy. The older you get, the more responsibilities you take on, the more you find yourself working. And then the working starts to knock the tar out of you, and you're sort of like, okay, well now where do I find the energy to get the film going and to get the film done? So it's an interesting thing that I'm going through now. I have to adjust it. It's just, you know, take out the screwdrivers and the wrenches and just go into your head and start working on these things. And that's what I have to do to make things happen. But in terms of those first two films, I am proud. As I said, the first feature, we shot a promotional trailer for it on 16 millimeter negative. That trailer ended up being put into the film. It actually is in the film, but the rest of the film was shot on sound, Super 8 millimeter film, because we found out we really couldn't afford 16 millimeter. But we could afford Super 8. So we shot the whole film on sound, Super 8 millimeter film. It's like a demented home movie. It's the best way to describe it, because that's what Super 8 millimeter was. That's what people used to shoot their home movies on. So when you look at this film, that's the exact feeling you get. Oh, wow. Okay? For those of people out there who might know the filmmakers whose name I'm about to mention and the studio whose name I'm about to mention, my first film, I describe it as I just did a new commentary for it. A Blu-ray is coming out. It's out on DVD. It is streaming. Okay, the first one. I have the connections for you actually now. But the funny thing is that it was a movie. You know, that first film. I always said it. I guess you can almost say it's like your first child. I would say, you know, and I always said it was a damaged child, but it's still my first child. I have tremendous pride in it, you know, in its own way. It's got a crude effect all its own. So I said in the commentary, I said it's the type of movie that would be made if director Andy Milligan had worked for Monogram Pictures. Okay, so Andy Milligan was an independent, low-budget exploitation filmmaker of the late 60s, early 70s, who did everything on his own, from designing the costumes to doing the makeup effects to running the camera. And he had a 16 millimeter sound camera. He could record the sounds right on the film. It was a newsreel camera. Okay? So Andy Milligan, if he had worked for Monogram Pictures, well, Monogram Pictures was a B-movie company that existed in the 1940s and predominantly employed actors that were no longer being used in the A companies like Universal, MGM. They were picking up people like Bela Lugosi, Boris Karloff, all of these actors who were sometimes falling short between the more lucrative gigs. And they were putting them to work in these very low-budget movies. So if Andy Milligan had been around and making movies during the time of Monogram, the output would have looked something like my first film.
Gotcha.
Okay. Second film we did on digital video. At that point, digital video had caught up. I hated video. Just to let you know, I hated video. Half-inch VHS, the video cams. You put the tape into the camera and you'd shoot. They were really light sensitive. So it was dangerous. If you aimed the camera at a light by accident, you could actually damage the internal workings of the camera. And so I hated that type of stuff, and I also hated the look of the standard video. It looked like a soap opera, like the old soap operas from the 70s, from TV. It was a very flat look. You know, it was not film, it was obviously tape. And I never wanted to resort to that. The only time that changed is when digital video came. When digital video came, you could light that like you were lighting film. And whereas film has grain in it, there's grain in film, digital video had like an electronic grain, okay, if you're following me. So if you lit it, you could if you lit it just right, you could sort of mimic the look of film. So that's why I got comfortable going to digital video, and the second feature was shot on digital video.
So going to distribution, financing, any stories that might be interesting about how you get things financed in this world?
Well,
With 10 minutes to go.
Okay, all right. With 10 minutes to go, I'll just say that the first, now we're down to 9, the first two films were self-financed. That means we were paying for things as we were going along. Okay, so it was actually coming out of my pocket and sometimes other people's pockets who were involved or invested in the film, and that usually came from our work, whatever our work was at the particular time. When I made the second feature, Blitzkrieg, which was a war film, I was doing a lot of teaching and presenting. So I had Cinephere Video. So the money I was getting from that, I was rolling right into my productions. Okay, paying bills, of course, paying my bills, but then whatever was left over, we were rolling right into the film. Oh God, with the first film. With the first film, you know how well, you wouldn't know, but I got the film itself. Somebody called it overstock. I had a friend, this is the way things were back then, I had a friend who worked at CVS. CVS was kind of new here on the island, as far back as like 1980. We didn't have really the chain drugstores, we had the locally owned drugstores. So when CVS opened, my friend had a job with them, and one day he came to me with bags full of Super 8 film. And he told me, what he told me was that it was overstock. Overstock in the sense that it passed its expiration date. And truthfully, you were not allowed, or you were not supposed to sell film that passed its expiration date. They did. Most places would continue to do that. But he just happened to notice this was past expiration. He loaded me up 2 bags full of these cartridges of film. So that's what actually got The Bloody Ape made.
How did you meet this guy?
How did I meet him?
Yeah.
He was a friend of my brother's. He was a friend of my brother's. And I knew, my brother was in high school. I was in junior high school at the point that I met him, if not younger. And we sort of connected because he knew I loved cinema and he knew I was shooting things. And he liked my spirit. I've run into him in recent years, and he actually once said to me, because we hadn't talked for a long time, he said, "Have you really been able to survive off of this?" I said, barely, but yes, I have been able to. I have enough stuff coming in from all the things I do, but you have to be doing a lot of things. You can't just hang it on one thing.
No.
So that's how I kind of explained it to him. So the distribution was different. And when I did my first film, we were distributed on video cassette. And it was a guy by the name, when I finished the film, I knew the importance of getting it out there, and I knew I couldn't do it on my own. So I started looking up distributors on VHS, and there was an art house called Vanguard. And Vanguard was run by a gentleman by the name of Freyr Thor. He was from Iceland. And I got in touch with him, and I said, I finished this movie, Bloody Ape, and I said, I would like you to distribute it. And he did. I think we had cut a contract for about 2 years. And he distributed it for 2 years. After the 2 years, it went back to me. By that point, I had developed a website. This is 1999. Now I've got a website up, right? Started selling it on the website. It was the first title I started selling. Started moving the Bloody Apes through the website, okay? Later on, I would develop a distribution company for DVD with a partner of mine by the name of Rob Houseshield. Rob Houseshield runs Wild Eye Releasing, but he also runs Visual Vengeance. Visual Vengeance is an outfit that's dedicated to releasing the shot on video, the half-inch tape movies of the 1980s and 90s. That's what he specializes on, but he's putting them out on Blu-ray, but he's also going to be putting out my 2 titles on Blu-ray, because we started Wild Eye with those 2 titles. Those 2 titles, the Bloody Ape and the Blitzkrieg, were the first 2 that we released on that label, and he is basically my distributor. So we work out a deal for every couple of years, and he licenses the films for me, and he distributes them. So he's also involved, by the way, in the streaming. But that's not where his strength is. His strength is in physical media, which appeals to a cult audience.
Yes.
It no longer appeals to the masses. It's a cult. Yeah.
So we have less than 5 minutes, so we gotta do so many things. So first we're gonna do the raffle, but before that, website, where can people find more about you?
Oh, well, folks, you can reach me if you want to come to the website. It's www.cinefear.com. Cinefear is C-I-N, where is it? C-I-N-E-F-E-A-R, C-I-N-E-F-E-A-R, cinefear.com. It's a website for lost films, for films that have not been in circulation, and we distribute certain titles through that, and it's also got articles on motion pictures, and it's got a lot of fun stuff on it. It's an outdated site. It was built in 2000. The girl who built it passed away. So if I had, and it was at the HTML code. So it's a castle ready to fall. I do not lie to you. It's a castle ready to fall. I get very nervous if I have to update it, and I'm very slow about doing that. So you'll also notice that I have a kind of a blog site. I don't blog every day. I'm not of that. But you can connect to that through the Cinefear site, and you can see I put up articles, pictures, and things related to cinema. And what else? I'm sorry.
We got a website, we got all that stuff, but now we got to do the raffle. So we're nice enough to give away the Exploitation Journal.
Okay.
From 1997.
1997, Volume 2, Number 6, now out of print. And we went to the rarer ones for release here, so
we have that. We also have 2 tickets to the Long Island Trading Card Game Show, which is in Melville this Saturday. We're giving away 2 passes for that, and also 2 passes to the Route 110 Comic Show, which is this Sunday. So whoever wins the first one can pick what they want, and then we'll so on and so forth. So the third person will just get whatever's left over.
that's perfect. Sounds great.
So pick out the number.
Okay, I'm gonna go in there.
What do we got? So the first winner is
The first winner is 376.
376.
912.
912.
376 912.
Alright, so you get the first choice. Second choice is
Okay. Wow, this is very nice. Okay. Are we ready? 376.
376.
914.
914.
All right.
And the last one is
Okay, we're digging in deep, okay? We're doing a deep dive with this, folks. Okay? Are you ready? 376 913.
913.
376 913.
There
So
you
just
go.
so you know, everybody always is a winner at our live show, and courtesy of the East Melville Public Library. We're all out of time, so we don't even have time for final thoughts. So just make sure you guys listen to our radio show each and every week. You miss any part of the show?
Just be nice to everybody.
Thank you, everybody, coming to a live studio audience.
Yeah! Woo! All right.
Our next live show at the East Melville Public Library will be on Wednesday, October 9th at 7 p.m. We're going to have author Valentina Janik as our guest, and also be giving away tickets to a convention as well. So that's it, and we'll see you all next time.